فريدة اوكي.
بسم الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهديه الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأزواجه الطيبين الطاهرين أمهات المؤمنين وعلى صحابته الغر الميامين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار وجعلنا الله وإياكم من سامع من نار. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا بما ينفعنا وانفعنا ما علمتنا وزدنا علما ولا تكلنا إلى أنفسنا طرفة عين واجعل ما علمتنا إياه حجة لنا لا علينا. أيها المباركون السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
ما زال حديثنا موصولا معكم مع هذا الكتاب المبارك وهو كتاب عمدة الأحكام للحافظ عبد الغني بن عبد الواحد المقدسي رحمه الله رحمة واسعة المتوفى سنة 601. قال باب السواك. السواك يطلق على الآلة التي يتسوق بها كالعود من الأراك وغيره، ويطلق على الفعل الذي هو التسوق وهو دلك الفم بالمسواك لتنظيف الأسنان واللسان واللثة. فالسواك مطهرة للفم مرضاة للرب تبارك وتعالى كما جاء في حديث الذي رواه حديث عائشة الذي أخرجه أحمد والنسائي وابن خزيمة وابن حبان والطبراني في الأوسط والبيهقي وذكره البخاري معلقا. قالت لك صلى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم من فنيك جمع كيلو بلندي كتاب من كذا عمدة الأحكام حافظ عبد الغني بن عبد الواحد المقدسي أهل كتابه يوسف رحمه الله أبينا هجرة ورسنجي كما ورسنجي كلي بيم بوندا من دولة من ينجو سوني السواك. وأقرأ كون نيكو السواك بكسر السين ولا سينو نين المهملة يالا سيرو كدومال دوكولا تومات دوكومي يالون كي كنيم جوسنو وان وانا التي يتسوق بها وانا جيم جوس لاكا نيم جوس كوم نيكو دوكو ولا من يندي كوم يتيبا إكي نيم جوس منا إكي ولا كمان دي سواكو إكي أهو بارو فنان موكا بارو من كونسا ولا تسوق نيم جوس ونيم ولا من يندي كوكا إنيم سوسا من دوكولا وركا كولا من بابلا وكل تنتبه الصفرة يكاد يكون كذا فاكا يلو كولا صدق كارين نول من بابلا تاسي يفكر كي سنيا أنو براجو كسرني وما نرى حديثه دنيا حديث عائشة رضي الله عنها فكلا صلى الله عليه وسلم سياقو نياكو مطهرة للفم أكدا سنيا نيلي أنو مرضات للرب على لا دنيا فنبيجي وما رأى في ذلك سبحانه وتعالى. فلان كلا صلى الله عليه وسلم ينبالا سنو كنا نابي دونا أدون دارا كنا فنج فلو من ولا أكاني من جوس nawul da suda salo ka hadithu min anyami yasusu fahu akada susa saka aman sata la kullo nya ibaje nim mo sino kedala doro ay dala fango nyin ka falil so kila ka susa pour nyin kama adala sero nyin sibete yo adanda ko ke sallallahu alaihi wasallam haditha fulo min bijam ko ma bina min tan dila jam aw bondani yela ni walla sallallahu alaihi wasallam wodo yimbe sunnol lel kono abe sali yela sunnol kono anno seniyana mi anon ko saliyo susunduro ka ka qur'ana na da seniya bunda kitabu tahar kitab tiya sama je annahu min sunan al-wudu min at-taharati al-muraghab fiha ay fawaidul sunnafan sudu wala ka seniya biji jata kende ayi biji anen ka sera jaw suma jawni kondo dañin ko ay ka dafa na sero ni betendi andi si barajo sodo anen ka bula kila no sallallahu alaihi wa sallam hadith fulo min nata bunda ni wala hadith abu hurairah radhiyallahu anhu ko an abi hurairah radhiyallahu anhu ya hadith mu abu hurairah la atande ka toni da wayo kada je bari jamalo tan bin ka wala to mu abdurrahman bin sakhr ad-dawsi radhiyallahu عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم حديث كلا صلى الله عليه وسلم أبو هريرة ترجمة بدا لا تندي كافر لراوية الإسلام مسلمة ريال في الأرلان لأن حديث أبي مكثرين ولكن من حديث سيادة باكي كحديث كلا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم ade adu da muslimi ya ko no muslimi ya lanke no hijira no la sanji wurulan jam da fa ama khayma ma tan diko ala haditha tanko nyim bawo isafa ke ba nata le ke ba dun da muslimi ya ko yin kama nin kila hadithul min fa buka be tankano asinyi na fa ko mo ke ba tankano bora nya ka kam da ne safero ka jiyo ka den ne wala tankaro ka wanda ko ne safero ka beroka yala bero ni anaks wala nyende ka korokon ka fengena ka safero ka o katujere o kasa wonu o kasabati ko dinni wala tankaro bol ya barke wala tankaro ka manda jiyo ka mandi ko be safero ka ye folo me jadi ko fudara fulan jawda ka dara harum folo tutu do te ba tankaro jama wala ka tarje ko ni no ka siya kabira wo fukila sallallahu alaihi wasallam ila mu barakamat mo sida afi isonda me sikam mu barakamat wala sahaba li na fa jama soto kila sinyo yato kela dunia be dan anila l'akhiro fankum mate buru ka tambe dunia ba saje ka sinyo yala tinna ko anen dol be sire asa ko karamu arjana de karamu arjana de asifem ko mi alon ko yon saban fanko so taretema ka araji ni subhanahu wa ta'ala kabira fu kila na rafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam kila de ko nyin dande de ko nyin ka fu nyom kila duwa fi aka ka fu nyoma ko kabira bo do la amanya ko tan bar ale o ke kila le sallallahu alaihi wasallam mo kana do kane suma wala ya mu'min khasa'isihi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ma mo kila taren ko la ko sahabar kada Abu Bakar ya la ko ke wala kada Umar ya la ka ke wala Uthman wala Ali do mo iji kide fanna nyaawnya iji de karamo la nyaawnya ala ya nyullel fi siyate adu nyullel yedam ala libe wali yo fala libe mo kendo fala ikafaro na wala kana to mo kana jonde ne to wala asallallahu salamata wal afiya Abu Hurairah ko kila sallallahu alaihi wasallam ko laula an ashqa idha harfu imtina' al-imtina' dai balar ku ke gasi aka balaro ka kulla nin ayatarano aka bana nin ayatarano kolya tijeno doskila la yamaro be kala e ka fa al-amru yaqtadi bi an al-wujub ni yamaro na hadron abana sando ala la yamaro wala kila sallallahu alaihi wasallam aka menyene wala mu واجب da kuriya da sai alai ya marwa ma atakum rasul fa khudhuhu ma nahakum anhu fantahu walin fendo na da kafalin ka bande wato ka san ba kan to da sai kuma kan min sabana wayatan de ko yin joso man ga fardot amman ka wajibu kabra ko laula ana ashukha ala ummati la amaru do kila alaihi sallallahu alaihi wasallam على يعلم من كتوفه في آخر سورة التوبة ولقد جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم عزيز عليه ما عنتم عزيز عليه أقول أنا كلا والفم فنسكات اللي تورا كوت فلا نجا أقول لولا أن أشك على أمتي ولا أمة الإجابة ملي دانكما أقول ناتا كلي يبولك كولي عليكم لأمرتهم دم من بي يامر بالسواك من جوسولا عند كل صلاة صلوات وصلوات وأن يأكل صلوات وصلوات إسيه برامك واجبون لأن يأكل قبل كلا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فإن ميالون كان مول سوسن داك أن لا نفتار برامن في من دولة تورو لجي هذا حديث دو فنندو ولا عند كل بأن الوضوء صلي وادو فننا إسي نينجو سونين تاكاك فإن ميالون كان يأكل نعم
The Shaykh he says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Shaykh he praises and thanks Allah. He sends salutations upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says we continue from where we stopped. The scholar Sheikh Muhammad, Sheikh Abdul Ghani bin Abdul Wahid al-Maqdisi, Umdatul Ahkam, the name of the book. He said we're in the chapter of cleanliness. The scholar he died in the year 601 after the Hijrah. He said this chapter is speaking about the miswak, the siwak, the brush that we use, the siwak. He said this siwak, the scholar he writes, he says that it is the letter sin with the kasra, siwak. He said it is the one that we use as a toothbrush that we use to clean our teeth. He says, and it
toothbrush matter and toothbrush
it looks like this. I think we all know siwak. Now the Sheikh wants to make a difference between the toothbrush and the siwak. As he just showed, this is the siwak. He said, the scholar he writes, he says, it is used to clean the teeth. It is also said that it is used to remove the color that is on the teeth. The Sheikh he says, as we know, when you eat or when you drink or when you use the teeth a lot, the color starts to change to yellow and whatever else. So the miswak is used to clean it, and it is something that cleans the mouth. Not only that, it is pleasing to Allah. Using the miswak to clean your mouth, it is something that is pleasing to Allah. And it is also an act of following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He says this is a sunnah of the Prophet, as the Prophet used to use it all the time. The Shaykh says he used to use it so much. He said anytime he would enter his house, the first thing that the Prophet would do is use his siwak, and he would brush his teeth with it. He says the first thing he would do as well when he woke up to pray in the night, he would use his siwak. The Shaykh says, so it is from the sunnah that the Prophet did it and that we follow it, and it is also from the acts of the wudu, the sunnah of wudu, that the Prophet used to use the siwak on his teeth. He said it also has many benefits. He said, the Shaykh he says, like for instance, the first thing that it cleans the teeth. He says for obvious reasons, when you use the siwak, you're brushing the teeth, so you're cleaning the teeth, and it also brings good smell to the mouth. The Shaykh he says because we all know, like when you wake up, the smell of the person's mouth is different. So when you use the siwak, it has a certain smell that it has, and it removes the bad odor that is in the mouth. He said, and also using it, you are rewarded for using it because Allah loves it. It is something that is pleasing to Allah, and it is also an act of sunnah. So you are following the sunnah when you use the siwak. So there are many benefits to using the siwak, and it's something that is highly encouraged in our religion. He says the first hadith that he will mention, the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrates from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Shaykh he says Abu Hurairah, we mentioned about him before. He said he is the Sahaba, the famous Sahaba, whom about his name he said there is some debate about his name. The Shaykh he says, but what is authentic, or what we see that is the most authentic, is that his name is Abdurrahman bin Sakhr ad-Dawsi. He said this is the Sahaba that we mentioned before. He is from the Muqtirin, he is from the most prolific narrators of hadith. He is one of the few, the 7 greatest or highest narrators of hadith. He has narrated more than anyone else. The Shaykh he says he is called the Rawiyatul Islam. He said he became Muslim during Khaybar, and he became Muslim at an old age, and he had a memory that wasn't very strong. The Sheikh says because as we know, the old man's memory, or the one who has reached a certain age, passing teenagehood, or has reached a certain stage of adulthood, the person, his memory is not the same like the young person. He said, as the saying goes, the old man's memory, an old person's memory is like ink on water. When you write ink on water, as soon as you write the first letter, the Sheikh, he says, while you're writing the next letter, the first letter is gone. He says this is the memory that old people have. That's the usual. And he said, as the young person's memory, the saying is, it is like ink on stone, or the inscription that we put on stone. It is like you're inscribing on stone. The Sheikh, he says, when you write something on the stone, you know, when you're writing on the stone, it makes that sound, that scratching sound. He says, when you write that on the stone, it stays on the stone for a long time. The Sheikh, he says, this is the comparison of the memory between the young man and the old man. He says, so this companion, Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, he didn't have a very strong memory, and he complained to the Prophet ﷺ. The Shaykh, he says, and they benefited from the Prophet ﷺ about the affairs of the dunya and the akhirah. He said, these companions, they surrounded the Prophet ﷺ, they sat with him, they benefited from him for the cause of the dunya and for the akhirah as well. The Shaykh, he says, the most important thing, of course, they benefited from him, benefiting from the akhirah. He said, as we would know, or as we know already, that he would say, so and so has entered Jannah, or so and so is in Jannah. He said, so the Prophet ﷺ told him to lay his shirt, and he would pray for him in it, and he would tell him to wear it. And after that, Abu Hurairah never forgot anything that he learned from the Prophet ﷺ. Now the Shaykh, he says, so, and this is specific only to the Prophet ﷺ. This is not for anyone else, because the Prophet was granted miracles that he would perform. He said, we do not see anyone, or the Shaykh, he says, rather, we do not see anyone after him, the Prophet ﷺ, like Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, or Umar ibn Khattab, or Uthman, or Ali, that they would do this action that the Prophet did. He said, because they are not like him. He is the Prophet. He has been given certain things they were not given. He says, so the Shaykh, he says, these are the best of people, the Sahabas, the Khulafa al-Rashidin, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. He says, if they did not do it, or they could not do so, then no one else after them could do so. He says, so it is a command from the Prophet, as we know. The Shaykh, he says, Allah, he says in the ayah, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. That whatever comes to you from the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, then take it, and whatever he forbids you from, then you must leave it. He said, so it is a command from Allah that we have to follow, and the Prophet doesn't like to make things difficult for us. He says, so for this reason, the Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith, this hadith of Abu Hurairah anhu, that had it not been that it would be difficult for my ummah, I would have commanded them to perform or use the miswak before every salah. The Shaykh, he says, the Prophet said, had it not been a means of difficulty, or had he not feared that it would be difficult for his ummah, he would have told them to perform the miswak and use it before every salah. The Shaykh, he says, it is like the ayah Allah, he mentioned in the Quran, that there had come to you a prophet, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُمْ, that it is difficult for him to do anything or to ask of anything that would be difficult for his ummah. So the Prophet ﷺ used to always love to make things easy for his ummah. The Shaykh, he says, so for this reason, he said, had he not feared that it would be difficult for the Muslims, he would have told them to use the siwak before every salah. Now,
in the hadith of an Aranafa Domije, from a friend and Yatri and Sunkarola, the Molla Farwa Siaje, Emalon de Dalilolka. You don't know in the Kilapa in the Kulisala. San Sarobe, what you want of Namra, a little one. San Kulisala, Fajir Salo Borokon, Salafana Salo Borokon, the hands of Salo Borokon. Yo dida na madhabu dola neko isul wal sulata dalilo dal miliko kwadiro la nyende comme ça nen tilo jenkata salifana ko la pour que ñew yos ito len sulata dalilo ba kila ko inda kulli sala inda kulli sala salwahi man fi ndo ko akere farda sal wurolu be suudo ko be tilo ko woto salfanani la ansaro boko woto nyin joso manke kam mola sumunyen da kala njur sawanandi e quand même fo al khaluf men ka finde sunna e noro men ka finda da ko ka finde kono la al khaluf aka finde kono la ko nin kono ken se yata fen ke finde kira ka fa min nako alaka wa hada asyabu inda allah min rihil misk koma wa sero men ka suma jawo men ka finde hada madde mo ko ka kananin dala wala diyata alaya katambi fanko nyen na misko nyen yo banne haren fawde ajube fanko do bi nen gaso be mo kono ko na fengel ndo katara kono banna finde ala sumo nyen ka finti banda me alon ka afengela sadara ka manke sumo nyen bada dala ko bare kono nyen kabrin gaso nyen fengede kirdi dalo aka fengela so sumo nyen fanande ka khulufo men fada khulufu fam sa'ib do sa khuluf fam sa'ib abo fanko nyen odo munyente ko nyen joso ade ikamo fana men jawyata be yala nyen don ta fi yala ta be den sungala bare men ta jawyata be comme gaje ko suda nyen joso man bete mala dalilo nyi ata mun do suda nyen joso man bete mina futa la hadithu do jang hadithu Hudhaifa kila na wala sallallahu alaihi wasallam ka nyen joso andara ka atle ko intuti ohu tahtadu ninga kila nembula ta noma be kanda so nembula kila ta nono ngakila tuje بالفيل نسأل الله السلامة والعافية نعم دم مومو كافو فين كان أمام بدا ين كان دليلو ندلا دينو بلور من قولا دليلو سورة يجيو سوما بدا كمونه كلا من فجي صلى الله عليه وسلم دليلو نارا القرآن ولا كلا سنمور مسافة ما سبت بول ودو كولا ميا لونكو أمان كفو سبت حديث فلان جام الحديث الثاني عن حذيفة رضي الله عنه حذيفة بن اليماني رضي الله عنه حديث فلان جاء حذيفة كان ينفى صاحب السر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كلا صلى الله عليه وسلم أي منافق من بافي أي بيته فنينه ولا نكاه كلا لكل وتيو بس حذيفة لما ينفهم موي فك بنت من عمر بن الخطاب الله أكبر أنا لا أبوني أنا لا أنا براسو من ديالا kila ta tulo min be diala bara aslanta fanna ko fo yam fananto fo mol kono kabra ilha ho Hudhaifa kan Hudhaifa na da fay totiji bara comme ça Hudhaifa ya dan datal adana da kila la kullo fengela moy ko rek sa Umar ka ko rasuro ka ne Hudhaifa man salimo memma fa bana kallo na kalon ko won tobe amon amon ko ko nyep yande hypocrite na masallallahu salamata wal afiyah Hudhaifa eka don ka to nyin Husayn bin Jabir don ko Hudhaifa bin Husayn wala an safa ko alon tan wala bawo hatta hadithu ko wala kanaje Hudhaifa bin al-Yamani bin Husayn bin al-Yaman ala kuni Abu Abdullah al-Absi eka konde Kufa ko de ko bi ko ma sida Kufa wala Iraq banko ñen mo banko fismande ban ma de fitno banje e mo balel tambe dañen denkiral Iraq bollel kono e Suria bollel kono e Yemen fanam bollel kono almare khairu sabat nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam ahadu akabir sahaba akafana be sahaba alfa balel kono mashahirihim anda bayla mo femo sallallahu alaihi kono mellon te kono Bukhari ko rahimahullah ko mata ba'da Uthman bin Affan bi 40 yawman to akwai Usman da belo kola kabri Usman fa wo farin kola Hudhaifa banda ya tiltanna qala Abu Nadr wa dhalika awwal sanati 36 wa banda hijrat wala sanjitan sabanin waran jawni na fe ako kila sallallahu alaihi wasallam qala fa kana rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam tatanu idha qama min al-layl akonin kila wala sudol إلى كسودو بالندل أركاكو ومن الليل فتهجد به نافلة لك أسى أن يبعثك ربك مقاما محمودا أكذا إسافة كذا كيلا كان واجب وتفر كسودو تاكا بالندل برا من كان من دول كان واجب وتفر بر سنو لم يعلم كابن بر سكر ويترو بنيامه مثل مومن يندل كان إمام أحمد يافو مومن بك ويترو سالي أكالا على سيديا من ينمتا ويترو mo yanda ka kada misilimo ne safo sali isa sal no safo ko la street imma lo kilina ma be do yare wonta walla kada fa lo tannin kilin ha lo tannin kilin wala ma siyara wonta kila ko ga suuda bar ne ma han lo kilin da maraka wahida wala witro walla ye lo fula sali e ka fo le chef wala witro chef wala lo fulo nyen ya afengenen suuda salo ka conclo sa tella aka sorna tella witro nyen witro fulo mandara suudo nyen kon imma ya ke no suudo la falo lato tabe safo ko la walla ya jiki ko be wulla wala fi siyata janne suba fajiro tema ese wuli ka sali yelo sabal salno yelo lulla salno fo janne lo tannen kel are ni sonen di ana ta ita da follo kilen dam ma yola sali tabe witro ko nan do fa be suuda sallallahu ko ila ta sallallahu alaihi wasallam akona wulita idha qama min al-layli yasusu fahu akadaku yasusu fahu akadaku yo dol ka ka seni en ko ko mara ko ni shas ay kanyin kuma ka woni yasusu dol ka tan wala kuroti dol ka tan wala seni en diroje bal sar halanyin ko ako kuroni wala sutiya da fasar lonyin wala na ko talafu fi tafsirihi fa qila dol ka yudallik kuma e ka susa وقيل يغسل دول كاكاكو وقيل ينقي دول كاكا سنين أكو الأول أقرب عفوا سوسارو ني فنجر ولا سوديا فنجراتي منجي من سوديا الثوابو ني أكو نكي لا ولد صلى الله عليه وسلم سودا سالو نيندو أسادا نين سوسا أسانين سوسا فاهو بيوسين كاماكو حديث متفق عليه akamari la kullo nyoya kila na man la fi suma jawla mume wala dinda siwa ko nen karaban jor ko dine muslimi ya musaniya ne ngakila la balu karanda bebe loro wala ka bebe loro wala kan sallallahu alaihi wa sallam muslimu ka fanjam ko wala famu muslimiyat muslimiyat na ya wala munoti ala ko inna al mushrik hada inna al mushrikuna najasun ila najasa bela ila tafundo ko sa ta fengeta nota ifan bala yado fanan bonya ba mo mi yalan kada janabo ko ade mo sola dala yiri so ko hala ta ye ko mun la ye mu kanyin fangol men sande safuna fengama san shampoo si ba façon me besa ye ko wala han sa misli be ade man sene sariya ndiro de man sene to ne man do misli be afan ko fengeta be الحديث الثالث وكنتنا ولا يجي الدرسة
نعم the Sheikh he says the second hadith he says and we are approaching the month of Ramadan he says and the people they commit every different type of fatwa during this month of Ramadan he says there is some statement from the people that we hear they say that you should not brush your teeth after the Asr prayer the Sheikh he says where does this come from he said brushing your teeth, especially with the miswak, this is something that is encouraged and there is no basis behind the statement, there is no proof for it saying that you are not allowed to brush your teeth after Asr. The Shaykh he says that this is part of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and he would brush his teeth during the day and the night. And he says, and the prayers, he would say that he would brush his teeth, as the statement he said before, had he not thought that it would become difficult for his ummah, he would have told them or commanded them to use the miswak according to every prayer or with every prayer. The Shaykh he says, so and the prayers they are during the day and the night. He says, so the Prophet ﷺ, he said as well that the fasting person, the smell that comes from his mouth is more beloved to Allah than the smell of misk, the perfume. The Shaykh he says, yes, this is the natural smell. He says because the person when he is fasting, when the stomach acid, it has a smell that goes up to the mouth. He says, so the person, this smell will come from his mouth, but it's not referring to the person leaving his teeth uncleaned from morning to evening. He says, no. He says, rather, it's a natural smell that comes from the stomach. When the stomach acid comes up to the mouth, so the person's mouth will have a certain smell, which is not very pleasing. He says, but it is not referring to the person not brushing his teeth. He says, so brushing your teeth is something that the Prophet used to do all the time. The Shaykh he says, and he is the one we are commanded to follow. And Allah he says, if you follow him, you will be guided. وَإِن تُطِيعُوهُ تَهْتَدُوا. That if you follow him, you shall be guided. The Shaykh he says, so if someone comes with such a statement saying you should not brush your teeth after Asr, especially when you're fasting, then this has no proof. And if people come to you with statements, request for the proof so that you will not be misguided. The Shaykh he says, or blind following rather, he says the hadith, this hadith, the second one is the hadith of Hudayfa bin al-Yaman. He says he is the keeper of the secret of the Prophet ﷺ. He is the one the Prophet ﷺ gave him the list of the people who are hypocrites. He says Hudayfa kept this list as a secret. He says, but he only informed Umar about it. Rather, he did not tell was in the list of the hypocrites. And Hudayfa told him, no, your name is not there, but after you, I will not tell anyone else. He says, so Hudayfa, this is the companion that mentions this hadith. His name is contested. Some say that his name is Husayl bin Jabir. The Shaykh he says, but what we see from the scholars of hadith, what they use the most is Hudayfa bin al-Yaman. So we hope or we see that perhaps this is the name that they believe is most correct. He says his kunya is Abu Abdullah al-Hazfi. He says he was in the land of Iraq, so
No,
Kufa. He was in Kufa. The Shaykh he says, may Allah uplift the trials and tribulations going on in those lands. They are all lands that uplifted scholars of this ummah. He says, may Allah free all the trials from these lands, including Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Ameen. He says, Hudayfa is from the elders of the Sahaba. He lived during the times of the companions all the way to the time of Uthman. The Shaykh he says he died 40 days after Uthman died. He said when Uthman was assassinated, he died 40 days after that. And the Shaykh he says this was during the year, this was the 36th year after the Hijrah, 36 Hijri. He says the hadith of Hudayfa, he said when the Prophet ﷺ would wake up, the Shaykh he says, and very important to note, he says Imam Ahmad said, because the Shaykh he says here a point to note, especially for those who don't pray the night prayer, but specifically speaking about the witr. He says because the witr is part of the night prayer and it is the last, and the minimum is 1 rak'ah. He says you either pray it before, after Isha, if you see that you are not going to wake up, or you pray it before Fajr, the later part of the night, which is better. He says, but it is something very short and very simple to pray. The Shaykh he says, and it is very serious that we neglect the witr prayer. He says because it is only 1 rak'ah, the minimum, and you can add to it any odd number other than 1. He says Imam Ahmad he said the one that does not pray the witr prayer, his witness is never accepted, his testimony is never accepted. He says so it is very serious and we have to pay attention to praying the witr prayer. Either you pray it right after Isha if you cannot wake up in the night, or if you wake up in the night to pray your night prayers, then you can pray it as the last one. The Shaykh he says the witr prayer should be the last one. He says the shaf that we refer to, this is the 2 rak'ah, and the person can pray as many units of 2 rak'ah as possible or as he wants, and then end with 1 unit of witr. He says the hadith of Hudayfa, he says whenever the Prophet ﷺ would get up to pray in the night, he would always wash his teeth, or he would always brush his teeth. The Shaykh he says the scholars say that they use different statements. He says but it is saying that he brushes his teeth, he would clean his teeth with the miswak whenever he woke up. This is the first thing that he would do. The Shaykh he says and the hadith is muttafaqun alayh, it is agreed upon. He says so it is important to note the Prophet ﷺ understands the importance of cleaning himself because he's going to meet his Lord. He said he's going to meet Allah, so he cleans his teeth so that he will meet Allah in a nice way. He said, and it is Islam that teaches us how to be clean. He says because if you follow the way of some of the disbelievers, that they do not hold upon cleanliness, whether it is washing, whether it is cleaning the mouth, whether it is performing a ghusl or janaba after the person has intercourse with his wife. The Shaykh he says they do not attend to themselves after answering all of these different types of human nature in the way that they are supposed to. He says so, and you will see this is why Allah He says in the Quran, إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكُونَ نَجِسٌ. He says that the mushrikun, they are impure. He says so, it is physical impurity and spiritual as well. He says so the person should follow the Islamic character or etiquette of cleaning himself and do it the right way, because even if you take shower, the Sheikh says, or you use the soap that they use or the shampoo, but you do not do it according to the way that the Prophet taught us to do the ghusl or the janaba, then according to the Islamic Sharia, you are still not clean.
Iko Imam Ahmed da ko ni membi ka vitri sali
comme la Sharia te mutala
la sharia te mutala
ma ka tan de ko sunna le mi an ka ko kila abu ka tu sallallahu alaihi wasallam Allah ne fajiro la lofulo sawa na be tamasilo ka buke tu الحديث الثالث حديث سبنجان عن عائشة رضي الله عنها حديث من عائشة رضي الله عنها قال دخل عبد الرحمن بن أبي بكر الصديق. عبد الرحمن هو شقيق عائشة رضي الله عنها. عائشة باكل فاكل يولا دولك على المسلميات يعني فتح مكة أنا فتح مكة من جنب دولك فتح مكة فم المسلميات ولد برات بنتا مكة فم عبد الرحمن Aisha barin kelma ako kabira dun danka ay kira tra sembere kira sallallahu alaihi wasallam be sembere asiso nyen ako wana musnidatuhu ila sadri wala nyen date kira sembere na asiso koma kila efangende na fa yo kama kamda ko kila sallallahu alaihi wasallam go wala kata ala sato nyet kamda mantra bambandi ka aya makoy o ka musola kende ya nyinta kaka ana Aisha fanan ko wasu wala kila banta ala lumul kuma ka dum siyam ko tema ala lumun kila banta lumul anda banta la buna kun anda banta abe sembere ngate Aisha radhiyallahu anha nani jamu bindi wala nyende ko ela daji o e yora min banda ko wala nen kila ta jahasa ba hadiso mina o falaja nya ako ma Abdurrahman siwako nyenka nyenjo sola kuma yatandi ko kila akano nyama sallallahu alaihi wasallam ko alharo nyama ako Abdurrahman dun da ka wate abo alharo nyama bare nyenjo sambe Abdurrahman imrat yalan ko ketema yastannu bihi aka nyenjo sa fa abadahu rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam basara kila nyabula nano to lemu e fankanu kila nyabula nano abo alharo nyama sallallahu alaihi wasallam فأخذت السواك فقدمته بس كبير عائشة وجدرم أكمل عائشة فهم كونين أبلا فرين يمكن ينال رواده إذن وجين كابل كلا يا إشارة كم كاكم مم من كل فما تابع كها ولا يندكو ها يا ده بس إشارة يندك أكون نار كاجين بقدم ده أبي فنجي كل سبب بس كلا من تركين ده terus asa ingin josi sonia bulnyame da amada kara fa do be bonna ka fa wala nako fa qadamtuhu wala nyanda mota na nyi wala ka be fanki na min sa ko yandi fa tayyibtuhu ako ngabete yanda thumma dafa'tuhu ila nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa kula ngadi kila fastanna bihi kila ya nyus ako fa ma ra'aytu rasulullah sanna istinanan ahsana minhu nena ma ya injoso men ya talo woni injoso nyent comme kila mo be lafrin phénomène do sa be lafrin na ba mari be nyoyala asa be nyoyala asa ka be kamal den seriya sallallahu alaihi wasallam fama ada an faraga rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam rafa yadahu aw isbahu thumma qala fi rafiq al-a'la ko kila ma go watadrom woni joso to aban pare abe pare la wala dron aya buru ko nonye bulendi comme ka fo ka be arabe nyala subhanahu wa ta'ala la rafiq al-a'la aburo wulen sal aw fo sinya sab thumma qada wa qala ala niyanta wa kana taqulu mata baina haqinatay wa dhaqinatay aisha ka wasu kama ka fa kila bandan haqinatay wala kulo men ka taraja kono fuloñi e kañum tar ko katena ka fa bantanna o fanje fulol temanen nañin kamu ñin tem yoskiraɓe sembere ngala atara akoro comme kiraɓe banna wata ɓe sembere nden وفي اللفظ فرأيته ينظر إليه وعرفت أنه يحب السواك أكان هذا في دارو دوتو أكون غاجا بينانجي جوسران جوبي كان غاجا على كتاب فقلت آخذه لك فغاتا تايبا فأشار برأسه كلا يأكم جيجا النعم هذا لفظ البخاري ولمسلم نحوه لفظ من أرونات البخاري مبالو لجنة والله تعالى أعلى وأعلم بعد دانيلا عليه فتنبي sunkaro ñimma kayra kono kanna junumbol mum be kafari kanna batol mu taje ka sungo ñen soni andi ñe be ala dan la fana na imamu men kada imam Musa Kaba ko do mamin bandan do la ustado lan karamo mare men kada Muhammad Kaba be ala dan la yam fo kay ala barakendol be mutay ala fudundu ko ala yam fama bela mo kendo la mi alon ko kabira nata karanda misra banko kan abe dina janjando do la banko kan wala mala do koti television to radio to karamu be momo ya lon aso be ata do ko alaka kam mo ko de min kam ma be karamu to alaka kam mo la bande min ka boji o nyaadon ka siba so do man dia andon ay hormo so do baka mo moji be den ma tal ko demol jam fara nyonda bari o kanu de abentem mo tabla kamo busa mo be a horma talindin mo tambola talbo mi biya siya bar mo be a bunya mo be a horma an alfa alfa non abo nyama o mo jendo lam be ala danila ala sayyidina wa sallallahu wa baraka ala muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam subhanaka allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk
abandale
Alhamdulillah. Ya, astaghfirullah.
ñi modol fulistal dole ako atambitalo quite professional terrorist sorry stop
Yeah, right.
oh okay
Some people are crazy.